All right, welcome to the Jim Acosta Show. It's another day that ends in Y, and the chaos that Donald Trump has unleashed in the Middle East in his war of choice against Iran. Here to talk with me about this is our friend Wajahat Ali. Waj, great to see you as always. We should just jump right. I mean, there's a lot of different headlines here. I mean, he's going after Spain. He's lashing out at Spain, according to the Wall Street Journal, saying he's going to end trade with Spain because the folks in Spain would not allow the U.S. to access its bases as part of the Iran strikes. But there's also the chaos in that you have all of these Americans trapped in the region. They can't get home. Nobody thought to maybe you shouldn't travel to Dubai on your honeymoon this weekend. Maybe that was a bad idea. And Donald Trump is trying to justify his actions with like sort of 10 different explanations right now. You and I haven't had a chance to catch up on all this. What's been your reaction ever since this whole thing got unloaded on the American people over the weekend?
My reaction is that things are going to get far worse, that America is living in its horror remake of Groundhog's Day that we never, ever learned, that the same lies that were used to justify the disastrous war on Iraq, Donald Trump tried to do a reboot and said there's an imminent threat. Iran poses an imminent threat to Americans, even though he also simultaneously, as he said that on Saturday on the White House, you can't make this up because we're ruled by the dumbest, most ignorant people. On the White House, he still had that link that said Trump has obliterated Iran's nuclear weapons, which he didn't. So simultaneously, he lied and said he obliterated Iran's nuclear weapons. Then he's saying Iran posed an imminent threat to America, even though his own website, the White House, said he had obliterated nuclear weapons. International agencies said that Iran is not close to acquiring nuclear weapons. Our own Pentagon said that Iran does not have ballistic missiles that can reach America. And furthermore, Jim, it's a really big, important piece of news that I think is being missed, and I think we should really focus on real quick, is that Donald Trump lied again and said negotiations are getting nowhere. There was a fantastic 20-minute interview with the Omani foreign minister. I'm forgetting what channel. Oman's foreign minister was the liaison between Iran and United States. There were ongoing negotiations, folks, to the point where Oman's foreign minister flew to D.C. 12 hours before Trump and Israel announced the strikes to tell J.D. Vance that they actually had achieved massive breakthroughs, where Iran actually admitted to not enriching any more uranium, right? That basically it accepted that diplomatic coup, that if Donald Trump was actually smart and not being led to Armageddon and war by the Christian nationalists and Benjamin Netanyahu, he should have what he should have done is said, because of me, it's a breakthrough. I've achieved more through diplomacy than Obama and the U.S.-Iran deal. Look what Iran has agreed to. Fantastic, right? He didn't do that. Instead, preemptive strike. Folks, he's lying. There was no imminent threat. And then, if I may, yesterday we got Marco Rubio, who just admitted it. And I can't believe he still has his job. He straight up says that we did a proactive, preemptive strike because there was no imminent threat, but Israel had already committed to striking. And then we realized if Israel was going to strike, there might be retaliation against our bases.
Right.
So that's why we preemptively and proactively attacked. Translation: Israel was going to strike. New York Times corroborated yesterday that Benjamin Netanyahu kind of bullied and or pressure or cajoled Donald Trump to do it, instead of using our immense leverage over Israel to stop them. We went ahead, and then to make it worse, Jim, February 25th, Politico said that some people in the White House want Israel to strike first to give them cover to remove the regime change. To make it worse, they said, oh, no. We collaborated with Israel. And then, Jim, to make it even more worse, no exit plan. And
no exit plan.
Last thing I'll say is, I'll have a lot more to say, but last thing I'll say is, notice that Rubio says, it's a war. Mark Wayne Mullen, it's not a war. Hegseth, it is a war. Trump, it isn't a war. I mean, this is what happens, Jim, when you're being run by the world's most ignorant, reckless cosplay crusaders. It's terrible.
No, it's absolutely, I mean, they're all over the place in a major way. And I mean, to a lot of your points, I mean, we are here right now because Donald Trump blew up the Iran nuclear deal. And lo and behold, his own people were trying to work out some sort of diplomatic agreement with the Iranians up until the point when this happened. And if you had the Iran nuclear deal, you wouldn't be doing any of this stuff. I mean, this happened years ago. The other thing we should point out is, I mean, to your point about, I mean, this whole storyline, was it Netanyahu who pressured Trump? Who did what? Netanyahu was asked about this on Fox. We should play this because it's a remarkable piece of video. Hannity straight up asks Netanyahu about this, and for like a few seconds, he just sort of nervously chuckles. Let's play this.
People that say, well, the prime minister of Israel dragged Donald Trump into it. And as somebody that's been friends with him over 30 years, nobody drags Donald Trump into anything, number one, but I want to get your reaction to that.
Well, you're right. I mean, that's ridiculous. Donald Trump is the strongest leader in the world.
Okay, so that was not a vehement denial. That was not what we would call a full-throated denial there from Bibi Netanyahu. And then Donald Trump was asked about the chaos, at all the airports and people trying to get out of the region and so on. And then he let slip this explanation that, well, they thought Israel was going to get attacked. It sort of goes to the Marco Rubio thing that they're throwing out there. Let's play that.
Air travel right now is severely restricted in the Middle East, and thousands of Americans are stranded. Why wasn't there an evacuation plan, and will you send planes to get people out?
Well, because it happened all very quickly. We thought, and I thought maybe more so than most, I could ask Marco, but I thought we were going to have a situation where we were going to be attacked. They were getting ready to attack Israel. They were getting ready to attack others. You're seeing that right now. And a lot of those missiles that are hitting in, those are stationary. Those were aimed there for a long period of time at these other countries. So I think I was right about that. We attacked first. And if we didn't, it could have been, look, we're really decimating them. They're being decimated.
Waj, I mean, first of all, they said they were decimating the Iranians last year. I mean, that was sort of last year's talking point, but it's all over the place. And I don't know if it's the gold fumes getting to him, but at one point he's sort of, let's ask Marco about this. And the other point that I think we need to hammer home is, I mean, this is pretty ridiculous. The U.S. Embassy in Jerusalem tweeted this out overnight. The U.S. Embassy is not in a position at this time to evacuate or directly assist Americans in departing Israel. The following is provided for your information as you make your own security plans. They go on to tell people, well, you might be able to catch a shuttle at a border crossing, and maybe you can get out that way. I mean, this is sort of like when you get stranded at JFK and they put you on the bus to the train, to see if you can somehow get to your final destination. Where the metro, breaks down in DC and they put you on the bus that'll get you up to, Friendship Heights or so. None of this makes any sense. They're all over the place.
The world's dumbest people who are deeply insecure and cosplay as tough men because they're broken, because daddy didn't give them enough love, are joined by Netanyahu and religious messianic figures in his genocidal regime, and also by white Christian nationalists like Mike Huckabee and others. That now it's breaking, folks, that there's been over 200 complaints from armed service members saying that their leaders across these different military installations have told them that this is a religious war. The Military Religious Freedom Foundation just received over 200 complaints. Jonathan Larson broke it, and now it's going mainstream.
Wow.
So you got white Christian nationalists.
Yeah,
right,
Huffington Post picked this up, right?
Yeah, this is necessary for the end game. They believe that Jews need to control Jerusalem as a necessary precondition for Jesus to come back. And when Jesus comes back, the first group that he kills, according to this apocalyptic extreme version of Christianity, the Jews, followed then by the Muslims. And now we got Pete Hegseth, who is a white Christian nationalist, right, who's part of Doug Wilson's churches. He brings Doug Wilson to the government. Doug Wilson believes, is a white Christian nationalist, also believes that the 19th Amendment, Jim, that amendment that gave 51% of the population the right to vote is a mistake, right? And then you got the Supreme Court. We know that Alito's wife flew not just one, but two flags at two properties associated with the January 6th insurrection, one of them being a white Christian nationalist flag that has been appropriated by them, right? The Appeal to Heaven flag. So you got this white Christian nationalist group, Mike Huckabee, avowed white Christian nationalist, in his interview with the world's worst person, Tucker Carlson, who didn't, I hate saying this, Jim, nonetheless did a very good interview with Mike Huckabee. It pains me because he's a white nationalist.
I was going to say, Tucker Carlson has been coming out against this stuff and has been saying, what the hell is
Taylor Greene?
What happened to no forever wars? What happened to, we're not going to start new wars?
Well, he asked Mike Huckabee, who is the U.S. ambassador to the UN, about, river to the sea. What do you say? And then Mike Huckabee said, well, according to the Bible, Israel, if it wanted to, it could take the entire Middle East, but we believe that they won't. And as a result of Mike Huckabee, the U.S. ambassador, the U.S. To Israel, saying this, you had all of our allies in the Middle East saying, "What?" And now
Yeah.
you have this.
Look
So
at this
you have
chaos.
Donald Trump, military-industrial complex, neocon warhawks, Benjamin Netanyahu, who's been at it for 40 years, been telling us my whole life, Jim, Israel is very close to a nuclear weapon. I'm hearing this my entire life.
He did
And
this
now
during the
white Christian
Iran nuclear
nationalists would
deal
let us into
talks.
this.
That's right. No, I mean, Netanyahu, I will tell you, like, I covered the second Obama administration. I've said this many times. I don't know if I've said it on this show. The most pissed off I have ever seen anybody in the Obama White House was when Prime Minister Netanyahu gave that speech to the joint session of Congress and basically threw the Iran nuclear deal talks under the bus and claimed that Iran was this close to getting a nuclear weapon. And it's like Lucy in the football. This has been going on for years. And obviously the Israelis have a right to defend themselves and yada, 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 just as any other country does. But Donald Trump seems to have been hoodwinked.
That's right.
By Prime Minister Netanyahu yet again. And I just don't, is it because he just would rather focus on the drapes in the ballroom? I mean, it just seems to me that Donald Trump has other more important things to do. He's got the statues on the Rose Garden and so on.
3 times he's been hoodwinked. I'm so glad you brought up. I think it's important. We could have avoided all of this if Donald Trump had just abided by really the feather in the cap of the Obama administration, the second administration, which was the U.S.-Iran deal, that literally lowered the temperature. And even hawks who are skeptical said, we can't deal with Iran, we can't deal with the theocracy, they're extremists. Even Mattis, General Mattis, who was Donald Trump's first Secretary of Defense, who was critical originally of the U.S.-Iran deal, when Trump, if you all remember this, during Trump's administration, he was like saying, hey, don't blow this up. This actually works. What did Donald Trump do? Obama did it. Got to blow it up. Blows it up. Why does he blow it up? People take the DeLorean back 10 years. Israel was in favor of blowing it up. AIPAC was in favor of blowing it up. Christian nationalists were in favor of blowing it up. The Warhawks were in favor of blowing it up. He blows it up. Then last summer, Donald Trump gets again dog walked by Benjamin Netanyahu. Maybe Netanyahu gives him compliments, whispers in his ear. If you notice, Netanyahu did the same thing yesterday during the Sean Hannity interview. The best president, the strongest president.
He does this the whole time. Yeah.
Putin does this also, right? People know you flatter him. What happened? Donald Trump then joined Israel in their 12-day war with Iran, bombed Iran, the nuclear facility, degraded it, but then said, I obliterated it. And then joins Israel in this disastrous war without any exit strategy. And going back to our point, Jim, it's a war. It's not a war. It's a regime change. It's not a regime change. Now, as of 2 hours ago, the White House has released objectives for Operation Epic Fury. It's called White House Operation Epic Fury. Regime change is no longer a specific goal as of 2 hours ago. And then when he was asked about it, I guess the worst case
regime change is tough. I mean, we saw what happened with Iraq. I covered the Iraq war. You take out Saddam Hussein, that doesn't necessarily make things, peace and harmony and all of that in the Middle East.
It makes it worse, right?
It totally blew the lid off of stability in the Middle East. Ironically, it emboldened Iran, put Iran in the position where it became more of a grave threat, more of a nuclear threat to the U.S. and our allies. And it's just one of those things. You take out the Ayatollah. You say, oh, we got the Ayatollah. It works on a bumper sticker for the MAGA crowd. But then what happens after that? What happens when you unleash that kind of instability in the region? We're finding that out right now. I mean, can you imagine the Americans who took their wife on a honeymoon to Dubai last weekend, and now they're just stranded?
I have family right now. As we're speaking, I have family that literally is in Saudi Arabia to do the Umrah. Umrah is a pilgrimage, minor Hajj in Saudi Arabia. I have friends in Dubai, right? So Iran is now retaliating. And the reason why Iran is responding this way, folks, is if you've been following what we've been saying so far, Iran came to the table. None of us are a fan of the Iranian regime, a brutal regime, oppressive regime. They've killed at least up to maybe 15,000 protesters have come out on the streets, right? Okay.
Horrible.
Two things can be true at the same time. Saddam Hussein is terrible, but the manner in which you remove him could make things worse. We saw that in Iraq. Now we're seeing it in Iran. Donald Trump said, okay, Iranian people, time for regime change. How? There's no ground troops. if anything, is going to consolidate the Islamic Republic to be even more hardcore. The Revolutionary Guard are still in place. There's now a succession plan. You killed the Ayatollah, they're going to get a new one, right?
Right.
And for Iran, Jim, think about it. Iran says, we came to the table. We were in good faith. We dealt with Obama. Things were good. You blew it up. We came in good faith again. We tried our best. And you then freaking joined Israel to blow us up. So every 6 months, no matter what we do, now we see this as an existential threat. And I think this is very important for your viewers, for those who don't understand how, this works. About 85% of the Muslims are Sunni. I'm Sunni. 15% are Shia. Iran is Shia. The Islamic Revolution is a Shia guardianship of the clerics. So for many Shias around the world, when you assassinate and kill the Ayatollah, the supreme leader, it's not just a political leader. For them, and this is a crude analogy, but still works, it's like imagine killing the Pope. It's their religious leader, right?
Yes.
So I have friends who are Shia who are like, I disagree with Iran's politics, but nonetheless, we rely upon these religious clerics for guidance in life. So what I said on Saturday, because my family's from Pakistan, there are a lot of Shias in Pakistan. There are a lot of Shias in Bahrain, in Lebanon. There's a lot of Shias in Iraq. What happens if this gets framed as a religious war and it's Israel and the United States doing a reboot of what we heard, remember, in the Iraq War, Crusade, and you're seeing it. Pakistani Shias attacked the U.S. consulate and over 22 people died. And that's just in one day. Imagine if this just gets some extremist groups come and say, look, it's the crusade. They hate us. Jim.
I know. Why bring back, what we all dealt with during the 2000s, which was an age of a threat, a global threat of extremism and terrorism that can just really, take the world down a dark path. Another thing that we should really get into, I don't want to miss out on talking about this because I think is one of the most important things that happened all day was to see the Secretary of Homeland Security, Kristi Noem, get grilled at a Senate hearing. It happened earlier today. They asked her about everything. And I think maybe the most stunning moment, there were a lot of stunning moments, but the most stunning moment was when Senator Sheldon Whitehouse, friend of the program, a Democrat from Rhode Island, busted out some photographs of a certain piece of aircraft that the DHS has been using lately. Steve Schmidt has been on the show and has referred to it as Air Fuck One. For the younger viewers who are listening, earmuffs. But this is let's see how this played out and talk about it.
Could you explain this?
Sir, I'm looking at a picture of an interior. Looks like a bedroom.
Of an airplane?
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
You're not familiar with that?
These photos are not accurate. If you're referring to the airplanes that the Department of Homeland Security has purchased and are purchasing, we're using them for long-range command and control aircraft that is dictated in statute by Congress for the Department of Homeland Security to have a plane.
Luxury jet with a bedroom in it?
Yeah, we used a 737. I've been on it once, but it is being used by other administration officials, and it is used for command and control flights for the department. The department has found that in purchasing our aircraft, that we will save the taxpayers hundreds of millions of dollars.
Does it have a bedroom?
In fact, we spent
$1.42 billion
on ICE deportation.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think you need a luxury bedroom for conducting deportation operations. But there's been a lot of reporting about her relationship with Corey Lewandowski, which, I don't want to go down that road too thoroughly.
Allegedly, they are using taxpayer dollars to.
Yeah.
Yes.
To join the Mile High Club, it sounds.
Yes.
But Kristi Noem is a constant source of embarrassment for the Department of Homeland Security.
3 days ago, Axios reported that Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem was planning to use border funds for almost $300 million luxury jet fleet. That it was so egregious that it even horrified this profligate Trump administration. Can you imagine wasting so much money that even this Trump administration that is wasting $400 million on a ballroom is like, whoa, Kristi Noem. And so White House brings that up. I'm so glad he showed the photos. She can't turn away from it. Also, I knew that Kristi Noem might have been the fall person because in November, the DOJ threw Kristi Noem under the bus when they were asked who defied Judge Brosberg's order to turn around the
Right.
fate of 239 brown men, including Kilmar Brego Garcia, right? You remember that? The judge was like,
do.
whoa, whoa, whoa. I order you to turn this plane around. Instead, they kidnapped those men, sent them to die, be tortured at Seacoast. Thankfully, they were returned. And the Department of Justice said, oh, that's Kristi Noem. So I always kept that receipt in the back of my brain, Jim. I'm like, there might be a fall person. And then you saw Kristi Noem refer to Renee Nicole Good as a domestic terrorist.
Yes.
Then you're seeing her cosplay Barbie. And then the person who destroyed her and the person who gives 0 Fs was Tom Tillis, the Republican.
Oh, yeah. He went off.
He brings off, first of all, you know he's going to go off because, first of all, he brought up that she killed her dog, number one. And then he called for a resignation. Then the room started applauding Jim.
I mean, they must have some polling going around, even on the Republican side of the aisle in the Senate, that shows that Kristi Noem's polling right now is dog shit. And that is why you're seeing that kind of thing. Now, Tom Tillis, I will say, a little late to the party. He could have been making these noises sooner. He's retiring. Somebody who's not retiring, as far as I know, is Senator John Kennedy of Louisiana.
Oh, he went
after Kristi Noem over calling Renee Good and Alex Preddy domestic terrorists. We should play that because I think this is extraordinary.
Accurate or inaccurate, I think you did. What got my attention was that you blamed those statements on Mr. Stephen Miller at the White House. Did you not?
No, sir, I did not. And in fact, where you're seeing that is in a news article of anonymous sources. And anonymous sources say a lot of things, but I've never said that at all.
Well, here's what you said on the record. I'm going to read your words. Quote, everything I've done at the direction of the president and Stephen.
Sir, where did you see me say that at? You read that in a news article with no sources affiliated to it.
You said it on the record on January 27th of 2026. Did I read your words accurate?
Wow. I mean, Waj, I think in this scenario, Kristi Noem is the dog. I think that's what's happening right now. Kristi Noem has now become the dog.
And they're gonna take her out back and retire her. She's the one who's, folks, it ain't gonna be Pam Bondi. He needs Pam Bondi. She knows where the bodies are buried. She's, as the Attorney General, is active in what I call, and Ro Khanna said this and Hillary Clinton said this, now a cover-up. The Epstein file is a cover-up. Kash Patel, head of the FBI, I think he's too close. He knows where too many bodies are buried, but they're pissed off at him for wasting taxpayer dollars. That was a bad look when he went and chugged beers with the hockey team. There's some people who I think he's not going to let go of, right? Kekseth, Pam Bondi, but Kristi Noem increasingly seems like the fact that Kennedy went after her,
yes,
that Tillis went after her, and the fact that the room applauded when they asked for her resignation, I think, and plus also this contempt that this administration has for women. Jim, I wouldn't be surprised. And plus,
I've been saying this.
Immigration.
I have been saying this, Watch. I think that Donald Trump is a wounded political animal right now, and more of a pig than a dog. But that when push comes to shove, he will start throwing people overboard.
Absolutely.
If he would like to get his poll numbers from 35 to 38, he will throw Kristi Noem under the bus. There's no question about it. He'll say, one last flight on Austin Power Shag Jet, and it's back to the Dakotas for you. I think that's exactly
excellent reference to an excellent reference. I understood that the kids, Jim just dropped an exquisite pop culture reference.
The kids, yeah, baby. Do I make you horny? Sorry.
Do I make you horny, Corey? She's like, not anymore, Kristi. You have no power.
That's true. When she's not secretary, she's not a shagadelic, I suppose.
Yeah, he's gonna move on to Pam Bondi. You think I'm joking? I am not.
But I mean, I didn't think I would ever say this, because to me, John Kennedy, the senator, not the president, sounds like Foghorn Leghorn. Again, dating myself from the Looney Tunes cartoons. But when he says, Kristi Noem, I think you were quoting Stephen Miller. I mean, to me, that says that she's kind of done.
I do declare.
I do declare.
Yes. Jim.
Somebody get me a mint julep,
It's folks, we need some dark humor for dark times.
We need some dark humor for dark time. But I mean, I would say there's some turbulence in Kristi Noem's world right now.
And especially, I don't know if you saw the poll that just came out today. new YouGov poll, Kristi Noem has failed so spectacularly as the head of DHS. And folks, if you don't know, ICE is under DHS. Abolishing ICE, according to the new YouGov poll, came out an hour ago, is at a record high. 50% support abolishing ICE. Independents are now plus 17. 23% of Republicans now support abolishing ICE. And it's been such a failure, the overreach on immigration, which of course goes back to Stephen Miller, another person who's never going to leave. But they need a fall person because Donald Trump's strong pillar, the one thing that he could always rely upon, even Republicans, was immigration. Jim, they're negative double digits on immigration. So what he's going to do is, I had a policy, it was going to work, but it was Kristi's problem. So I got rid of Kristi, and he's going to throw Kristi under the bus. And he's once he throws Kristi under the bus, Corey's not going to find her shagadelic anymore. She's going to be a fembot who gets retired. And you're going to see the fact that Tillis asked for her resignation and the room applauded. I think that's a sign. And,
that is a sign.
And there's some breaking news as we're speaking. This war is going great. According to CNN, breaking news into CNN right now, 23 minutes ago, a source in the Middle East is telling CNN that the U.S. consulate in Dubai was struck. Is now
wow. And I mean, and just to close it out there, Watch, I mean, to me, this is why I bring up the fall of Saddam Hussein, and I tie it to the taking out of the Ayatollah. Do I care, whether the Ayatollah lives out his years on this earth in peace and harmony? I do not. That is not of a major concern to me. But when you unleash instability in that part of the world, bad things happen. Thousands of American soldiers died needlessly during the war in Iraq because George W. Bush lied to the American people. His administration lied to the American people, said there were weapons of mass destruction that did not exist. Donald Trump ran for president in 2016 based on, in part, his claimed opposition to the war in Iraq. I mean, if you go back and look at the archives, he actually did sort of support it in the beginning. But he savaged George W. Bush over the line that got us into Iraq, over all of the deaths. And that was one of the reasons I think a lot of independents gravitated towards him. He's betrayed all of that. And now we're going to learn about the law of unintended consequences.
Folks, Donald Trump has started more wars and struck more countries in 1 year than any American president. The number is 7. Let's not forget Venezuela. Let's not forget the trade wars. Let's not forget the threat against Greenland.
And Lindsey Graham wants Cuba next.
That's where I was going to go. Now, openly, according to reporting, Lindsey Graham is saying it, and we found out from the New York Times, he thinks he's on a roll, so he's going to go for Cuba. And this is a betrayal of his America First policies. And also, if I may, with the Iraq War, much like, remember the Iraq War? You got the Saddam Hussein statue fell. You had people out on the streets. That lasted for like a month. Over here, it only lasted for a day because unlike with Iraq, we have no ground troops. Unlike with Iraq, we don't have a coalition that supports us. There's no support. Remember, George W. Bush had like 80-90% support. There's no support like that. The majority of Americans are against this. And now, openly, as of today, Donald Trump has said there's no real evacuation plan. When he was asked about it today, he said, well, things happen so quickly. Furthermore, now they've gotten rid of the whole regime change. That was one of the excuses. Hey, Iranian people rise up. Now they've completely backed off from that. So what you have is Iran, which believes now it's an existential crisis, saying, okay.
93 million people in that country. I bring that up, 93 million.
So you don't have to but what Iran is saying is, okay, we saw that this is an existential threat. You're going to keep doing this. So what Iran is doing now, folks, to understand what Iran is doing, it's not suicidal, but this Iranian regime is willing to sacrifice its own people. It's going to gouge. It's going to gouge. Because they're counting on the lack of appetite that Americans have to die and suffer for this war. So they're attacking our military bases. You know this, Jim. We have a military base in Qatar, in Kuwait. We have a military base in Bahrain. We have consulates everywhere. All of it's being attacked. What we know as of now, at least 6 Americans have died. We know now Jerusalem is getting attacked. Now we know the Strait of Hormuz, they've tightened that up. So fill up your gas tanks, folks. And like I said before, if you don't know, there's many Shia around the world who saw the assassination of the Ayatollah. So what happens if they get riled up, Jim?
That's
how
exactly
do you stop
right.
this?
I don't know how we stop this. And it seems to me that Donald Trump has let the genie out of the bottle. He's opened up Pandora's box. And he should know more than anybody about what he was going to unleash. But he doesn't care about that because he would rather talk about statues and drapes and ballrooms and so on. But Waj, great conversation as always. Really appreciate it. Good to talk. We could go on and on like this.
Yeah, we could, but
won't
that was anytime we can tie in Austin Powers to the humiliation of Kristi Noem, I think is a good day.
Groovy, baby, groovy. Good to see you, Waj. Thanks so much. Really appreciate it. And to Waj's point, I mean, I just want to point, something out that Peter Baker of the New York Times said earlier in the day. He said, no president in the modern era has launched more military strikes against as many different countries as Donald Trump, including more individual strikes in 2025 than Biden ordered in all 4 years. And remember, this is the Donald Trump who, out on the campaign trail, said no new wars, that he was going to get rid of the warmongers and that there would be no new wars. The other thing that Donald Trump said on the campaign trail back in 2024 was that he was in favor of releasing the Epstein files. And there were a number of other people like J.D. Vance, Kash Patel, and so on, who said that they wanted to see a release of the Epstein files. And what have we seen since then? What we've seen since Donald Trump got back into the White House is an all-out effort to suppress the Epstein files, to cover up the Epstein files. And, as you all know on this show, Donald Trump doesn't dictate the news. He doesn't tell us here on the show what we're going to cover. And to me, covering the Epstein files is an important story, and we're just going to continue to cover it day in and day out. And I had a chance to speak with one Epstein survivor, Danny Bensky, about some of the latest headlines that have come out about the Epstein files in recent days. And you need to really listen to this conversation that we had about this, because she tells a very chilling story about what the Trump administration has been up to, what she personally has gone through. Her personal information has been exposed as part of the release of the Epstein files. And so take a listen to what Danny told us earlier in the day. And joining us now is Danny Bensky. She is an Epstein survivor who has been very much involved in the effort to release the Epstein files. And Danny, it's great to see you. Thank you for doing this.
Thank you so much for having me on. This is so exciting to be here.
Yeah, I mean, we should just tell the viewers, we ran into each other in a green room over at MS Now, and you leaned over and you said, "Are you Jim?" And I okay, yes, I am. And then you introduced yourself, and you just couldn't have been nicer. And I just really appreciate what you do and what the other survivors have been doing. I spoke with Jess Michaels. I speak with her all the time, and she's just wonderful. So thanks for what you all do.
Thank you. I'm such a fan, and I've been watching, we all watch each other's interviews because we all learn from each other, and we also, love the feedback, the validation, all the things. And so we've got a core group of about 7 to 10 of us that just throw lots of things in there. And so I always admire her interviews with you, and just thank you for always centering our voices.
Yeah, you bet. And Danny, I mean, we should just jump right into this, because I know you were at the State of the Union. You were invited by Chuck Schumer, and you've been working on this just like Jess and the rest of the ladies on this, and the families of various survivors and victims and so on. And I guess, where do you think things stand right now? What's your sense of where we are? Because it seems to me we're in the middle of a cover-up. I've been calling it the Epstein Gate cover-up on my show. It seems like they are holding back documents and redacting things that shouldn't be redacted. But you and I haven't had a chance to talk, so I just figured let you set the scene.
Thank you. Yeah. I mean, the cover-up is intense and it's deep, and it definitely feels like on that one side, how can this be happening through 5 administrations, through all of this time? And we're just seeing just how deep it really goes. But on the other side of that, it's been incredible to see the public is so aware of it, and media has taken such care in this now. And I think, it's what survivors have known all along, but now the whole world gets to see it. And, I think we've been sitting with so many feelings of just not feeling seen or heard, and just feeling like we've been living in this shameful environment that nobody will ever understand. And now it does feel like the world is starting to understand. And so many other survivors are coming out of the woodwork and talking to us about, how can we keep pressure on? And so something that is just incredible to see. I'm working right now with Virginia Giuffre's family and with a few other survivors on the legislation for Virginia's law, and trying to change the statute of limitations. So I think from the survivor standpoint, we are making change, and that feels incredible, even though it's small and we're up against the most powerful people. It does feel like, Lauren Hirsch, I love that she always says like the earth is shaking, and it does feel like we've had this incredible sense of community that drives us forward and propels our fights. It's been very exciting.
Yeah, and Danny, it feels like, almost every day or every other day, there's a new revelation that comes out as to how these files have been covered up and held back and so on. And there's a brand new story out in the Atlantic that I feel like we have to get to. I think it's a bombshell. We can show a clip of this to our viewers. It says, as the House moved toward a vote on releasing the Epstein files last summer and fall, the White House and top Trump allies launched an effort to forestall it that lawmakers told me was unprecedented in its intensity and scope. This is the reporter for The Atlantic saying this, referring to Thomas Massie, the Republican congressman. He called it a 360 pressure campaign. One felt not just by him and his staff, but anyone associated with him. One tactic that he had not experienced before. Some of his key staff members were suddenly offered more prestigious jobs in the Trump administration or more lucrative jobs in the private sector. The idea being that if Massie no longer had a full staff, he couldn't pursue ambitious legislation. Massie recalled asking an employee who a few weeks before the vote had received an employment offer that would double his salary. Quote, did it ever occur to you that they might be offering you this job to basically make me less effective? He said. The young man sheepishly replied, that's what my mom said. And the staffer turned down the offer and finished writing the bill. This just goes to show you, Danny, they have been working behind the scenes nonstop. They've been pressuring lawmakers like Marjorie Taylor Greene and Lauren Boebert, and not just Donald Trump has. What's your reaction to all of this?
Well, I think, it goes back to for me, I was at the House Oversight Committee back in September. That was sort of the first sit down with any sort of lawmakers, congressional reps, anything. And there were 6 of us that sat there in that meeting. And we actually told our stories in chronological order. And when I did that, I remember we started with Maria Farmer's story in 1996, and I'm 2004. And I wasn't the last one at that table, So you're looking at systems failing over and over and over. And I remember sitting there saying my abuse would have never happened if anybody believed Maria Farmer in 1996. And then we heard another story from a survivor who, it was after the Acosta plea deal. Epstein had an ankle monitor on his ankle, and she was raped and abused by Epstein with the agent or with the police outside the door. So how is it possible that the systems had failed time and time again? And I remember saying at that point, this is such a disconnect. Why can't they put the pieces together? And it was actually Rep. Melanie Stansbury, who's been so great on this case. She turned around, she's like, no, this is a cover up. This is 1000% cover up. And since then, it's been really illuminating to see just how much of a cover up it actually is. And just to see that there are all these, it's always that idea of power preying on vulnerability, power sticking together, making sure that they always come out on top. And it so needs to change.
Yeah, no, and Donald Trump gets asked about this, and I'm sure you've seen this. He calls it a scam or a hoax, and then he lately has been saying he's been totally exonerated. This is his latest thing. We should play this for the viewers just in case they missed it. There's been a lot of news. Let's play this and let's talk about this.
Yeah.
The last news of Epstein files, in particular, what about? I don't know anything about the Epstein files. I've been fully exonerated.
He says he's been fully exonerated. What do you think about that?
Yeah, definitely not. I would say, and there are other members of the Republican Party who have said this week as well, and really stood behind this idea of exoneration. First of all, you have to go through a legal process to be exonerated. So what process have we seen? What investigation have we seen? We've seen absolutely nothing, right? So even just the word in itself, just look it up in a dictionary. Clearly, there's no exoneration there. But also, I don't know, there was, I believe it was Rep. Luna who had said that she had spoken to survivors, and that survivors, nobody is raising their hand in these group settings where they'll say to everybody, is Donald Trump implicated, or have you ever personally had experience with Trump? Do you know how unsafe it would be in a situation like that for any survivor to raise their hand and say, yes, me, right? Because it's safety, it's defamation, it's not going through due process. Like all of these things are not going to result in the results that we need to have happen, right? And so it sets survivors up to a place where, it's a very hard place to be in all the time. So I just think this is why we need the real true investigations. But this idea of exoneration, I mean, there are thousands of victims, thousands of Epstein victims. So you can't tell me that you've spoken to all, 1,200 victims to clear him. So I just think that it's kind of a silly statement, really.
Yeah, I mean, and I mean, what is your understanding from talking to your fellow survivors? I mean, are there some survivors who have information to offer about Donald Trump?
Yeah, I mean, I think in the right channels. I think that, hopefully in due time, but I know, there, even in like the last couple of weeks, we know that there are pieces out there that need to at least be looked into, right? We know about these 5 pages from a victim that was, I believe she was 14 in 1985 or 83, and I can't remember the exact date. But there were 5 pages that are indexed in there, and they have his name. We know that his name is in those files, and the pages are missing. So those are just like, very tangible pieces. Not just thinking about within our survivor community, but yes, within our survivor community, there are things that need to be investigated for sure.
Regarding him?
I mean,
I don't want to get you in any trouble.
I don't want to get myself into trouble.
Yeah, but it sounds like what you're saying is yeah.
There are things, I think, for many powerful men. I'm not saying exclusively for Donald Trump. I'm saying that there are quite a few in the orbit that just really need to be looked at.
And what is the reaction that you get from some of these Republican lawmakers? I mean, have they been made aware privately that, that this is not a closed case? This is not an investigation that should just be pushed off to the sidelines.
Yeah, I think that's what's really been so fascinating here, actually. The Republican offices that we've been in, we are in more Republican offices than we are in Democratic offices. And I think the outcome is usually really wonderful. And they do feel very human, and they do see us as survivors. We're sharing our stories all the time. There are usually about, 5 to 7 of us in a meeting where we're having these very rich conversations, and we leave feeling like, okay, they understand, they see us, and then there's no action taken. I think one of the ones that was really, sort of disheartening for me was right before the Bondi hearing. We just really wanted women to stand together in solidarity. And we were in Kat Kamick's office, and she was lovely. She has a brand new baby, we really felt like we were connecting with her. And she had said, I'll talk to, she's the head of the Republican Women Caucus. And so, she had said, I'll definitely talk to my constituents, we support you. And then come day of where we're at this press conference, and it's literally just Nancy Mace is the only Republican woman that's there. And so it's hard because here we are, we are not politicians. And we've said it so many times. We've said it's not partisan. Like, I feel like everybody's so tired of hearing that from us, that like, it's a human story, but but at some point, like, everybody hears that, but we need to show that. We don't want to be called a Democratic hoax. We want to be people. We want to be, survivors who have been through horrible things that want to come out the other side, So I'm not really sure what it'll take to help the Republicans see that and really understand that we're really not in this for any other reason other than just making it a better future. We're not able to get on Republican media a lot of the time. Like, we've been hoping to get on Fox News. We've been trying to get on Newsmax. I think maybe 2 people had done a quick Newsmax, but like, stories are not even getting across the aisle. And I think that is something that's really, really sad. It feels like we're 2 different Americas a lot of the time.
Wow. Let me just peel back the onion on that a little bit.
Yeah.
So Fox is not interviewing any of the survivors there. You can't get on Fox?
Nope. So far, not a single survivor has been on Fox that I'm aware of. And a lot of the time, Republican media will not take our stories at all.
And why do you think that is?
Such a good question. I mean, this is where, is it a part of a cover up? Is it that they
Pressure?
just don't trouble? Is it that
Yeah.
lawyers get involved? I don't honestly, like,
Mm.
I can't tell you, but I do feel like, when I sat at the State of the Union, it felt very clear that the chasm between Republicans and Democrats is so great. And it's like, what happened to people, right? What happened to like finding, like, we know that like raping teenage girls is probably a really bad thing, right? Like, I hope we can all agree
Horrible.
on that baseline thing, right? It's horrible. It's horrific. And I just think like there's some baseline things that should just be like human. And a lot of the time right now we're stuck in these camps. And I just realized when I was there, just the feeling inside of the State of the Union and how polarizing everything can be. It's upsetting. I hope that we can find a way back to like that idea of like love thy neighbor and be there for thy neighbor, support each other.
Absolutely.
Because it does feel like quite a bit of that is missing right now. And I think that is because we're being fed two completely different narratives of what is happening in the US. So if anybody has ideas on how to get survivors on Republican media, I'm happy to talk to whoever's out there because we've been trying.
Yeah, and I have to ask you, I mean, you were there for the Pam Bondi hearing. What was that like?
I mean, it's, I have said this before, but I can't express. When I was at Jeffries, I would always feel like a ghost. I've said that so many times, where it's the truth of like walking through that house made you feel like you weren't in your own body and mind. There were the butlers, the maids, all the people that saw you, even just walking there. I mean, he had cameras everywhere. So even just walking that block, you knew that eyes were on you. And yet nobody stopped and nobody said anything and nobody acknowledged your presence. And it would have been hard to be in that mansion and not know what was going on there. You saw multiple girls, young girls coming in and out regularly. And so I think in a lot of ways, I felt so the shame was always so great while I was there. And I think that all of that feeling from like never feeling like enough, always feeling like, his manipulations were so great. All of those feelings resurfaced when she wouldn't turn around and even acknowledge a survivor's presence. Like it just felt like all of the work we've been doing, it's hard. I'm almost 40 now. And I'm like, I can still feel this way. Like, how is that possible? I felt this at 17. Like,
Wow.
I don't understand.
So it made the feelings of being a victim come back.
Yes. Oh, yes. I mean, and there were survivors in tears, shaking. I mean, because it's just a simple act of acknowledging a presence, right? Saying, I see you, you're here. And that's all, a lot of the time, that's all survivors need. I know Jess, has done a lot in the like trauma-informed spaces and about brain mapping and neuro waves and all of that. And she always says like, what a survivor needs when they come forward is just space. And I feel like it was sort of the same thing, just that we expected from our DOJ, especially after, my information was not redacted. My name, my dog's image was redacted, but my stuff was all there.
Your name was put in there.
Yeah, my name
Your name was
there.
left out there. Wow.
My name, my phone number, my address, where I worked at the time, all of that, not a single redaction in any of that. But what they did redact was my nickname was Danny. And then they had my MySpace page and my dog was literally blacked out and redacted, but all of my identifying information was left there. So it's
they
just
redact
like,
the dog, but not you. I mean,
redact the dog, but not me.
Unreal.
I mean, you can't write this, right? It was like, is this for real right now? And for me, like I'm public, so of course it affects me, but at least the phone number had been an old phone number. But in my story, there are other Jane Does, right? And so I didn't recruit them, but there was a friend who I was with, and she's Jane Doe, and her information was out there for the world to see. She was never public ever, and it's horrific, So. Anyway, and all that to say that you would think that the person who should really just take responsibility at some point and just say, okay, the redactions weren't what they should have been, or we didn't have the time. Any excuse, honestly, would have been better than just not even turning around and not even acknowledging a presence. It just felt like such like the cast iron gate that just, like we're all like, So
absolutely.
very visceral feeling.
Well, and I have to ask you, I mean, not to keep going back to the person who is in the White House right now, but I'm sure you saw Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton were testifying before the Oversight Committee, and they released the deposition of Hillary Clinton, and she got into this back and forth with the Republicans on the committee and so on. And it just made, I think a lot of people certainly made me think, isn't there another president and first lady that had a lot of interactions with Jeffrey Epstein, and weren't they around each other a lot, and Ghislaine Maxwell, and weren't they kind of a crew there for a while? How is it that Donald Trump, and I mean, I'm sorry, the first lady, I know people treat her with kid gloves. Why isn't the first lady in there testifying, talking about what she knows? Does that thought cross your mind as just
All the
something
time.
logical to do?
I mean, all the time,
Yeah.
anybody in their orbit should be questioned, right? And so they
Yeah.
made this whole big stink about putting the Clintons in, which I agree, they should testify. They should talk about whatever they
Sure.
know. But like, why is Hillary Clinton in there when Melania's not? But also, like, I think about Leslie Groff. Leslie Groff has never been questioned. She was Jeffrey Epstein's assistant for years. She was who I would talk to, who would schedule me to come to the mansion. So it's like she has more information than anybody. Why are we wasting time talking to Hillary Clinton when we really should be getting to the core of these, you know, the people that help run the enterprise?
Yeah. And why, I mean, why do you suppose that is? Why are they bothering with Hillary Clinton when they
Wish I
have
knew.
much more important people
Well,
to
I think
interview?
it is back to putting us right in the center of this political warfare where we actually have no place. You know, I think it's all about political games and calling us the Democratic hoax and then parading the Democrats in and making it all about them. And it's like we are polarizing this entire thing so much more than it needs to be when we really are just looking for truth. So we have to find a way to get back into really like who needs to be subpoenaed right away.
Yeah. And I mean, I know you've spoken out so courageously about this, and so have the others, folks like Jess and others. But what is the message that you always deliver to people? And when you say this is what we need, what do you tell people when they ask that? Like, what would you like to see happen?
I mean, changing statute of limitations is for sure a
Yeah.
huge step forward for adult victims and adult survivors. I think there are so many survivors who can't even come to terms with what's happened to them until they're 40. I still have things coming back to me all the time that, you know, they flood back when you really are able to sit with it. So I think that is a big step forward. But I think also changing it for our kids. I mean, that is my entry point into this. I was a dance teacher for many years. I still am choreographer. I teach 17 to 19-year-old kids all the time, and listening to them talk and just knowing that like we need to make the world a much safer place for them, especially in the dance community. I think a lot of the time we fall prey to grooming tactics a little bit easier because
Wow.
we're always told like where your body needs to go and what you need to look like. And so we just always fall into line with that. And it was a very open door for Jeffrey when I met him, because I had always, you know, wanted to seek perfection so desperately. So I think having these conversations are so important to be able to change it for the next generation.
To watch out so you don't get manipulated into something that could become a crime,
Yeah,
could become
exactly.
abuse.
I mean,
You know?
I was recruited in the bathroom by, you know, I was at a club that I was not supposed to be at. I was young, but I needed to blow off steam from being a ballerina. I had a very serious stage mom backstory, you know, but I remember I was in the bathroom with, she was kind of like a friend of a friend. I did know who she was, but she was the one who came to a friend of mine and I and said, you know, you could be a masseuse, massage therapist, you know, the body or dancer, all that. And then I had another friend who knew her very well that backed her up. And we're talking about they're young, you know, everybody wants to talk about the recruitment and they get upset about like co-conspirators and recruitment, right? But like nobody really knows how human trafficking works. And this is classic human trafficking. Like the two recruiters that I had, one I believe was 18, the other one was 15 years old. And 15 years old, she was just trying to survive, right? And she had a family. She was coming from a really hard situation. And so when you look at it case by case, you have to look at the human and look at how victimized that person was already and how, I mean, he often manipulated girls until he would break us down, or like see the level of how far he could break you down before he would then be able to, you know, ask for more. So I just think it's an important conversation of like knowing what the signs are for human trafficking.
Yeah. It's such an important topic. And I mean, I think it's wonderful that you are at least trying to make something good out of this, taking this experience that you've had and talk to young girls about this because, as a father, as a girl dad, I mean, I think about this and I think, if anybody ever tried that with my daughter, they would no longer be on this planet. They would not be in this world anymore.
Yeah.
And I just, my heart just goes out to you and Jess and the rest of the survivors. They can try to wag the dog and change the subject and try to change the narrative in Washington and cover things up. I tell folks all the time, we're going to stay on it. We're going to stay on this thing until the end. That's just the way it's going to be. And I know there are a lot of other folks in our world of independent media who are going to do the same thing. So thank you for what you do, Danny.
Thank
really
you.
Appreciate your time.
Keeping the pressure on is everything. And I think we are starting to see some change. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Danny. Great to talk to you. Really appreciate it. Thanks. What would we do without people like Danny and Jess and the Epstein survivors? And what I said there at the end, I'm just going to tell you that's exactly how I feel right now. I do feel that Donald Trump saw an opportunity in joining Bibi Netanyahu and Israel and carrying out these strikes against Iran as a way to change the subject. What was in the news late last week? What was in there? There was a blockbuster NPR story that the New York Times and others covered that said that the Justice Department was basically scrubbing the Epstein files and removing references to Donald Trump in the Epstein files. And I will go back to this Atlantic story because to me, you can talk about, there's a lot of important news happening right now. There's a lot of chaos in the Middle East right now. All of that is extremely important. All of that we're going to cover. But this story in the Atlantic, to me, paints the picture of what has been going on with what I've been calling Epstein Gate. Last July, there weren't a lot of folks in the media hopping on this. We hopped on it immediately because when the DOJ put out that memo saying nothing to see here, please disperse, we were like, okay, that's a story. That means something. But when the Atlantic is writing that some key staff members working on the Epstein files legislation were suddenly offered more prestigious jobs in the Trump administration or more lucrative jobs in the private sector in order to get off of that piece of legislation, to stop working on that legislation, Thomas Massie saying to one of his staffers, did it ever occur to you that they might be offering you this job to basically make me less effective? Talking about himself, Thomas Massie. And this young man who worked for Thomas Massie sheepishly replied, that's what my mom said. And he turned down the offer and finished writing the bill. Thank goodness he continued to write that bill. Thank goodness that we had this and all of the craziness in Washington these days and all the intense partisanship. It is an absolute war in Washington these days. The fact that you had Ro Khanna, Thomas Massie, people like Robert Garcia fighting through all of these efforts by the White House and Republicans in Congress to shut this down. Does anybody remember Mike Johnson not swearing in Adelita Grijalva for several weeks? I mean, does anybody want to make a bet that if we were to go ahead and investigate that whole scenario, that whole episode, we would find that, yes, there was pressure being put on the speaker's office to not swear in Adelita Grijalva? You just heard from Danny Bensky, one of the Epstein survivors, saying that Fox won't even put the Epstein survivors on their shows. Sean Hannity will have Lindsey Graham. Sean Hannity will have Bibi Netanyahu. Sean Hannity will have just about anybody from Trump world. But Sean, why won't you have Epstein survivors on your show? Laura Ingraham, why won't you have Epstein survivors on your show? Jesse Waters, why won't you have Epstein survivors on your show? I'm calling you out, Fox News. I am calling you out. If folks want to understand why half of the country is blasé about the Epstein files or thinks that Donald Trump has been exonerated, as he hilariously said and lied about on the South Lawn of the White House, if you want to figure out why half of the country isn't as interested in the Epstein files as the rest of us, it's because, I think in part because Fox won't put the damn story on. And how much do you want to bet that there are emails, that there are text messages between the White House, between Donald Trump's inner circle and the people at Fox saying, do not put Epstein survivors on their shows? I'm willing to bet big money. I'll put my money where my mouth is. I'm willing to bet big money that that has in fact taken place. And so, yes, there's a lot of important stuff going on right now. Yes, the Middle East is blowing up. Yes, the stock market is reeling. Yes, our 401ks are getting battered. Yes, the price of gas is going up. But I still care about this story. When are we going to get to the bottom of the Epstein files? When is there going to be justice for these survivors? When are we going to get to the heart of the truth of all of this? Why is it that Donald Trump appears to have something to hide? Why is it the Department of Justice is scrubbing these files that reference Donald Trump? Why is the White House strong-arming lawmakers to get them to go against the legislation that made the Epstein files public? Why are they strong-arming? Why are they trying to bribe staffers on the Hill? They're trying to bribe staffers on the Hill, according to The Atlantic, to stop working on this. All of this points back to the President of the United States. All of this points back to Donald Trump. And yes, there's a whole lot going on around this world right now. Make no mistake about it. There's a lot of news. But this reporter, this program, is not giving up on this story. You can bomb the shit out of any country you like around the world. You can keep removing dictators from whatever presidential palace they seem to be standing in at any given moment. But we're not giving up on this story, Donald Trump. And there are a lot of us in independent media who are just we're not going to give this up. We're going to continue after this like a pit bull on steroids until we finally get the truth. And my guess is that the truth is coming for you, Donald Trump. The truth is hot on your tail. No matter what you do, the truth is going to come out. And we're going to make sure that that happens. My thanks to Wajahat. As always, he's terrific when he comes on the program. Also, Danny Bensky, Epstein survivor, and all of the survivors who deserve the truth, who deserve justice, who deserve accountability. The time is now. Stop with the distractions. Stop with the bullshit. And let's get to the bottom of this. My thanks to all of you for watching. Just remember, as always, supporting independent media matters. Whatever you can do to support this program, support others in independent media, it makes a difference. Like, share, subscribe, all of it adds up over the long run. As you might have noticed, I am not in D.C. I'm back in New York, but I'll be heading back to D.C. shortly. But really appreciate everybody tuning in and day out, and all the notes of support that we get along the way. Many of them telling us, Jim, do not give up on the Epstein file story, and we will not do that. That's my guarantee. Still reporting, this time from New York, I'm Jim Acosta. I'll see you next time.